Oh, hey! I'm glad you're here. Growing up in a video store, I wasn't much of a reader. I know, that seems to track. I'm a very visual learner, though, so movies were just my go to. It's not that the two are adversarial, I think part of it was just subject matter. I mean, if the library had the novelization of Frankenhooker or Beastmaster 2 A Portal Through Time, then maybe I would have read more. It wasn't until Christian Death, Dead Can Dance, and Sad Dirk days that I got into poetry and going to the subculture bookstore. And there, suddenly, I was surrounded by all kinds of things I wanted to know more about. Throbbing Gristle, Derek Jarman, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness, it was all there. I think what I'm getting at is finding a way in. Whether it's a format or a genre, there are always paths that one can take to explore something and learn about it and themselves. Am I admitting that I had to find a way into something as common as reading? It sure sounds like I am, and this did not go the way I'd hoped. But you get what I mean. I now love writing and writers' habits and lifestyles, and even reading about those things, which is funny, where I started to where I am now. So when the idea came for this episode, there was just one person who I knew would be the perfect guest. And we lucked out, because they agreed. So without further ado, the film is Copycat, the guest is an author, and this is VH Us. Hello, and welcome to VHS, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has the profession or experience portrayed in the film. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I would be overjoyed if you'd find us in the various corners online. On Letterboxd, I'm Dirk Marshall, and VHUS_podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I'm joined by my awesome and inspiring co-host, Sarah Marshall. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Dirk. Nice to see ya.
Yeah, it's been so long. Now, you've been very busy with both Marshall's Hot Sauce and classes. The classes are listed on Airbnb Experiences where people can make hot sauces, jams, and pickles with you.
Yeah, for sure. We have brought them back just on a very small scale. So I'm doing little classes here. People can sign up on Airbnb for those. And yeah, I've been cooking a lot, doing some videos and things again. So that's really fun.
Which is what I wanted to ask you about up top. You're now a regular on Kitsch, which is very exciting.
Yeah. If people don't know about it, I can't remember if we talked about it on here, but Kitsch is a new platform. It's like Twitch for video gamers, if you're familiar with that, where you can interact with people. So there's a lot of really fun chefs on there, and you can be on the screen with them just like Zoom, but they're cooking and teaching you how to do something, and you can talk to them and interact with them. So it's really cool. So if people want to check it out, it's free to sign up, and you can go in and see what people are up to.
And are you on there regularly now?
Yeah, every week I'm on there, and my next one will be on Wednesday. They do a spaghetti Wednesday, so I'm going to make a fettuccine pasta with mushrooms and English peas from the farmer's market.
Fantastic. Sounds delicious. Our guest is New York Times bestselling author who has written novels, columns, and comics. It's Chelsea Cain. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Chelsea.
Sarah. Hi, Dirk.
Hello. Now, there are many wonderful aspects of your life and work, which we'll touch on in this episode, but I wanted to start that you grew up on a hippie commune, which, Sarah, you might know something about.
Well, my parents were super hippies, and Dirk was telling
Super
me...
hippies?
Yeah, super hippies. My mom doesn't like to call it a commune, but they bought land with a bunch of people together and built houses on it.
I'll tell you, my parents too were like, we don't, nobody ever called it a commune. It's like, but we just had 16 people in various accommodations on a farm.
Yeah, I think they're afraid of that. Sometimes like communes and cults get interplayed together where maybe they weren't necessarily that way. So that's why my mom never likes when I say that. But definitely grew up with hippie fam, and that's why, you know, my background in canning and gardening and stuff is still within me from those parents. I did want to tell you, Chelsea, that one of my favorite characters that you have written is Bliss, which is Susan's mom, because there are some things sometimes that remind me of my mom. And so whenever I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, she totally gets what it's like to have a hippie mom. And then now that I know, it's because you did.
Yeah. No, Bliss is totally based on my mother.
Oh, I love it.
It's so good. And your mom, Pat, shout out to Pat, read Chelsea Cain's books, and she was so excited when I was like, we're going to have an opportunity to talk to Chelsea Cain, and we were sitting up at the top of the garden, which sounds very fancy, and
The top of the garden.
thank you, yes, and she was just recounting the books and characters, and it was really lovely to listen to.
And reading your column in the Oregonian.
Yes,
and
yeah.
My mom knew so many Chelsea Cain facts. I was very proud of her.
Yeah, it was awesome. The film that brings us together is Copycat from 1995.
On another note,
The synopsis is deeply shaken after being assaulted by a deranged man, Harry Connick Jr., which I love those two things next to each other. Dr. Helen Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, must face her fears if she is to help solve a series of murders. There you go.
That was it. That's
That's it,
Copycat.
At the time of this recording, it's streaming on multiple platforms on a bare bones Blu-ray. But you know me, I gotta say, support your local video store like Movie Madness right here in Portland, Oregon. Let's talk a bit about who's involved. Our director is John Emile, who did The Man Who Knew Too Little, Entrapment, and The Core, which I still haven't seen. I was really bad at all of the asteroid movies that came out at one period, but I'll get to it.
Everybody has a blind spot, Dirk.
That's right. I think I'll never see them, but that's fine. Our editor is Jim Clark, who did Marathon Man, The Killing Fields, and Vera Drake, and Alan Heim, who did All That Jazz, Network, and American History X, which is pretty incredible, the people that are working.
It's well edited.
Yes. And our cinematographer is Laszlo Kovacs, who did Ghostbusters, Easy Rider, and La Femme Nikita, which is pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Yeah. And then our cast, we'll just burn through this quickly because everyone knows these people. Sigourney Weaver, Alien, Ghostbusters, Gorilla in the Mist, Ice Storm, just to name a few. Holly Hunter, who I love, Broadcast News, The Big Sick, The Piano, and Crash in 1996, the Cronenberg one, not the racism one. And Dermot Mulrooney, who is in Young Guns, My Best Friend's Wedding, Family Stone, Bad Girls in 94, which is a female western not a lot of people saw, with Madeline Stowe, Drew Barrymore, Stuart Masterson, and yes. And then last we have Harry Connick Jr., who was in Independence Day, Hope Flitz, and Little Man Tate.
Ouch.
Oh man, my favorite thing about Harry Connick Jr. is when he was going to have a talk show, he came to Portland to promote it on local news, and they had Sarah's red chili lime sauce on it, and so we have him like on camera being like, I really like this hot sauce, this red chili lime.
Yeah, and then watching this movie, all I could think about was this serial killer character had like eaten my hot sauce.
Yeah. It's weird. If Chelsea,
That's invasive. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Oh my gosh. So let's press play on Copycat. We start with a great above shot of college kids reading on campus, and we go into a hall, if you will, on a college campus where Sigourney Weaver is saying, what turns you on?
Let me ask you guys something. What turns you on? I mean, what really does it for you? Is it a great body? Is it a nice smile? Is it beautiful legs? Well, what turns on a serial killer is the suffering and death of another human being.
Chelsea, you have to get into the mindset of characters that you write so that you understand why they're doing what they do. Does this take a tax on you, or is this part of the pull of creating?
Oh, to get inside, I don't do the whole hands trembling against the wind trying to get inside the head of the killer.
Yeah.
There was nothing in this movie, which frankly, I quite liked far more than I thought that I would. I remember seen it on VHS, in the 90s, and then kind of just never really thought about it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it was muddied in a kind of group of just like 90s, VHS crime movies.
Absolutely.
And I was really pleasantly surprised to watch it and be like, this is actually really good. And there was nothing in terms of the criminology that I didn't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
That surprised me. But I thought that they did, there's some questionable police work in terms of handling evidence. But otherwise, I thought they did a pretty good job at the criminology kind of side of it. I thought that was really interesting.
I agree. I also feel like the handling of strong female characters in this film and what it's saying about the relationships with men and women is really impressive for 1995. I really like that, and we'll talk more about that as we go.
Yeah, no, I would like to as well. I think that's really important.
She asks people to stand up and shows a demographic of the classroom, as she intercuts between serial killers, which I don't know if a teacher could get away with these days, but I think
But I love it.
it's really awesome.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
It's really great.
And the way you see them like getting like the actual students in the
Yes.
lecture hall.
Yeah.
By the way, she fills a lecture hall. Like that was impressive.
Yeah.
Like having given lectures like that. I was
Yeah.
like, girlfriend, like you can fill a room. But then yeah, like when you see like projected behind her,
Yeah.
students intercut with serial killers, and one, it sometimes is hard to tell who's a student and who's a serial killer.
Yeah.
And you see the students getting increasingly uncomfortable, as
Yep.
one would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was smart. There were the many kind of just cinematic choices like that I was impressed by.
Yeah, it really takes you into that space, I feel like, and lets you experience what those students were feeling. You like see them kind of squirm and twitch and be like, oh man.
Yeah.
Right.
Next, Sigourney goes to the bathroom and they check all the stalls, and there's one woman in one of them that they don't want to bother. And then we get this reveal that when I had the promo tape from my dad's video store in the 90s, this was the first thing that I was like, oh my gosh, because the feet come out of the shoes and go up on the toilet. And I think for a thriller, I think all the moves this movie makes are very effective. I think it's very unnerving and unpleasant in the way that it should be. A wire is dropped down around Sigourney's neck, and then a cop enters, he's killed, and then we're 13 months later. Basically, is how it works.
I wanted to talk about that scene where the security guard comes in, checks the stalls, sees a woman's feet, is like, oh, okay, no problem, because it gives off this idea that women are safe. And so I wanted to pull Chelsea into that here because her main serial killer in her first series of books is a woman. And so if that wouldn't have happened, I mean, like the woman is the dangerous person here, but because that security guard just like thought, oh, it's high heels, like no problem, I'm just gonna walk away.
Yeah, no, it certainly shows a kind of casual misogyny.
Yeah, totally.
And yet, that like defense of the narrative, they are looking for, they're protecting her from.
Yes.
We don't learn this until like a hot minute later. They're protecting her from this particular serial killer, right? Who is a man who looks good in pumps, apparently from the aunt.
I mean, if those are his ankles, they're nice.
Do you think he had stunt ankles? Harry Connick
Oh,
Jr.
he
had
100%
stunt
was,
ankles.
yeah, for sure.
I think so, Sarah. I think, it didn't occur to me at the time, but
I'm going to have to rewatch it.
They were pretty convincing. They were convincingly, female. I found, it was a very clean bathroom for a college bathroom. I'll also give it that. It's so white, like the tiles are so white.
That's such a good
linger
detail
on them.
Yeah, that's a great
pull. It's a great too. Like one of the things that I was impressed by in this movie is how often they indulge in these like long shots, right?
Yes.
Where it's not just the edit isn't broken at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it's such a wonderful way to build tension, just structurally.
Yeah, I think it's something that's missing a lot now that we have 5-second attention spans and everything is just like cut. These long shots, Sarah hears me all the time when we're watching a movie, and if it's like a long tracking shot or something, I'm like, ooh, look at this camera work. She's like, I get it, you love it. I'm like, I do. The next scene we get is their first little taste of trauma. We see Sigourney Weaver and she's having issues with this horrible thing that happened to her, and she's listing off presidents to calm herself, which, if your history buff is maybe awesome, I would find it traumatic. I think that the history of America might be somewhat macabre, but here we have 3 people who are attracted to the macabre: Sarah, Chelsea, myself, and I wanted to touch on, you started a community pet cemetery as a child, is that correct?
Yes, I'm not sure how this relates. I had the pet cemetery in the community, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting that you were, bearing pets, and then that other kids heard about this and would bring their pets to your pet cemetery.
Yes. And it was pretty vast. My pet cemetery ended up, there was probably, maybe 30 or 40 pets there ultimately.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of
It is a lot. I know it sounds like maybe there was something sus going on in my community, doesn't it? And in fact, there were all of these, I would find these dead birds on my walk to school as like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And I could never just leave them. I would wrap them in my coat and carry them home and bury them. And so like 13 of them were these birds, like over a 2-week period, evening grosbeaks. There was just this big die-off.
Wow.
So then I decided to alert the community, and I got up even earlier in the morning and went door to door, right? It's 6:45 in the morning. Can you imagine an 8-year-old girl with a clipboard? Like, I just wanted you to know.
Absolutely
A
love it.
bird die off, please stop using pesticides. But then, yeah, the word got out about the pet cemetery. And then any kid who had a pet who died would bring their pet, because it was not only a pet cemetery, but I would also put on really great funerals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like there were hats and there was, I had a whole speech I would give. And then kids started bringing even like deader pets.
Deader.
Like pets, like this is my goldfish that's been in the freezer for a year and a
Oh,
half.
yes. Gotcha.
Right?
That needed a proper burial.
It needed a proper burial, like the hamster that's been under the radiator for 2 years, but is the sort of husk of a hamster. So then I started doing that. But
I think that Dirk just wanted to set the tone for who you are as a person in
Yeah.
case people don't know you. And I think that right away when you go to your website, you can tell, because if people visit Chelsea's website, there's this little corner of fun facts that pop up.
Yeah.
If you go to like, I think it was on the events page, but my favorite one that popped up, Chelsea, was that nutmeg is extremely poisonous when injected internally, which I had no idea. But I always love food facts. And so
I bet.
So I think the next time that I am cooking with nutmeg on my cooking demo, I'm going to quote your fun fact from your
You should share
website.
that. Like people need to know.
I think they do.
Yes.
It's also like, and we'll get back to the movie in a second, Dirk.
Sure.
Eye drops. Do you know this about eye drops?
I heard you can get diarrhea if you drink it. Is that true?
You can die. You
Oh.
can murder somebody with eye drops, like just by
Whoa.
squeezing a couple of drops into a drink. It's odorless, tasteless.
That just shows how little I listen, because I heard someone say die and my brain just was like, Rhea, diarrhea.
Yeah, that's the worst that could happen.
You got it part right.
It's enough to scare me away from doing
Yeah.
it. It's unpleasant.
They're very safe if applied correctly.
Back in the film, Sigourney pops into an agoraphobic chat room, and then we meet Holly Hunter and Dermot Mulroney. They're training. We get a little back and forth about to shoot someone in the shoulder or not. This script is really tight. A lot of things come back to fruition before the end.
Yeah, lots of great setups.
Yes.
Really.
We get POV as a killer watches a jogger, which is super creepy, and he films them and zooms in on the mouth, and they overlay a siren like a scream in this. It's a really beautiful editing choice.
I'd also like to talk about Sigourney Weaver's 3-monitor station
Yes, please.
for 1995. Like
Yeah.
that was very impressive.
Well, they
Like
had,
when you talk about the chat room, like this is 95, people.
yeah.
Like it's cutting edge technology. She's got screensavers going.
Yes, yes. It's so nice to see two of the most prominent screensavers of the 90s on display throughout this film.
I felt nostalgic, just
Yeah.
like, oh, bubbles, and then, oh, like fish.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's so good. Speaking of camera work, when Holly and Dermot show up, we get this awesome one shot of her investigating the crime scene.
Oh, isn't that the best? I love that too.
It's so good. These like
Yeah.
little minute things that she's just looking at. There's no voiceover. They're not treating us like idiots. You're just watching a master as she goes through the thing, and you just realize out of the two, she's the expert on this in the situation.
I also just have to mention her ponytails, because that was definitely a 90s choice and look,
Yeah.
where it's like pulled back
High and
into
tight.
one ponytail and then another one with the bangs.
Yeah.
I for sure had a version of that at some point in my life. I don't think that many police detectives had that hair, though. I think it
hard
was
to know.
definitely cooler than that.
I appreciate the fact that she's got her hair back. Like that's
Yes.
a good cop, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to have your hair like trailing into the crime scene.
Yeah, you got to keep
That's
it
true.
pinned.
You got to keep it back, nice
She's
and
in,
tight.
She's in control. Sigourney's paper's too far from her door. We get agoraphobia vision, which is a Dutch angle marked with a vertigo effect. In a film, this is really easy, and I was curious for you, Chelsea, as an author, is it ever a challenge to use words in the right configuration to kind of illustrate something like this? And I think in film it's super simple because they're just like, you can use a filter, tilt the camera. Is that ever a struggle for you, or does it just come kind of naturally?
It's not a struggle. I think it's even easier with words
Oh, really?
because it reinforces the point of view. So with film, it's actually really hard to go close point of view, and it's rare to actually go inside the person's head and we're going to see a scene. That's a
Yeah.
very rare choice
Yeah.
because usually it's kind of just dorky in a movie. It doesn't quite land, right?
Yeah.
It's a tricky choice. But anytime we can show point of view in any kind of story, it reinforces who the character is.
Mm.
Film is almost always, unless you're talking about DOA or something, like it's always this third person viewer, it's the camera.
Yeah.
And you can get smart about how you move the camera through space, but you're still watching over somebody's shoulder. Like you're still
Right.
observing scenes rather than actually experiencing them as a character would.
Oh.
Chelsea, I've read your books. Dirk hasn't.
Oh,
We can
sure,
lecture
just-
him about it later.
Lame, Dirk.
What? Wow.
I'm out of here.
That is cold.
I didn't mean to say it like that. But what I really want to say is that knowing the way that you write, you do this great job of not only describing characters and what they're experiencing, but really describing the city. So, I'm from Oregon and grew up in Portland. And one thing that I think that you do a great job with is showing what it's like to live in our city, like how it feels on your skin. And I think that you do that so well, and you talk about all these histories of the city, and I think that you do make it seem like a movie, which brings me into that one of your books was made into a show, and so I was curious to see how you felt like that video transferred over.
Yeah, so one of my books, One Kick, was turned into a TV show, 12 episodes of a show called Gone. It was filmed in Pittsburgh. It was a really incredible experience to go, because we flew to Pittsburgh to the set and spent a week there. They had built this whole street, like this whole studio. There was a whole street from the book. There was the main character's apartment, like all of the locations that I'd written about in this book had been built in this old Westinghouse compound, that now belonged to the city. So it was like the size of a college campus.
Yeah.
It was amazing to be in the space where there are 300 people who are all working on totally different aspects of making this thing from my head real in the world. From the people who are just like, running electrical wires to the people who are choosing what gets put on Kick Lanigan's fridge in her apartment, costuming, all of that. It was incredible to walk into Kick Lanigan's apartment because she's not a real person, you guys. I made her up in my head.
Yes.
And now I'm standing literally in, and I'd expected that somehow to be more like a sitcom where it's like 3 walls, but it wasn't. It was like I was actually standing in this space that I had made up. So yeah, I loved that. And I've always felt, with any kind of adaptation, because they certainly took liberties and made changes to characters and to the plot, but it's a different task, television.
Yeah.
Than a book does. And a movie has a different task than a book does, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make different choices. It was a very cool experience. And they dressed my daughter and her friend up in wardrobe, and they're extras. They sort of walk behind one of the main characters' heads in one
so
scene.
Cool.
So
That's really cool.
They won my affection forever.
What a fun experience.
It was a real mind fuck, I will tell you that.
I love that.
And did you have to pitch that idea to someone, or did someone come to you after reading your book?
Yeah, the book stuff, it's all optioned.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of my books are optioned for entertainment development. My main control is who I'm going to option it to. Because once it's optioned, they are, very polite about saying, we'd love all your feedback, right? Please, give us all of, any ideas you have. But they don't have to listen to any of them.
Sure.
Contractually, right?
Yeah.
But I've done many, many development deals, and that's the only one that has actually gone into full-blown production.
Yeah, it's often that you hear about things optioned for 30 years to be in development, and things are, in that time they're re-optioned or bounce from place to place to place, but to actually have something get made is pretty awesome.
Well, and I have to say, having something just optioned for 30 years is a great passive revenue stream.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Really, because somebody is paying you every 6 months or every year to re-up that option.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad for people whose work actually doesn't get to production.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can make more money.
That's what I was saying. It might be better.
Yeah. Just holding on to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of not listening, a man confesses to a murder, and he's not alone. There's lots of calls, one of which is Sigourney, but they don't take her seriously. Then they do a little research and look her up, and they think, oh, you might be useful. Part of what makes Sigourney at risk in this whole situation is the fact that she's studying and writing about a serial killer. So, Chelsea, I was just curious if you had any concerns in writing your series that started with Heartsick, if this would put you on the horizons of some less than pleasant folks.
No, I had no concerns about that, but it did.
Oh, no.
Oh. Tell us more.
Is there a new book coming about that?
Certainly, I got letters from prisoners. And you'll notice, like later we see Harry Connick Jr. in his cell, and he's got Helen's book on the desk.
Yeah.
Right? And you might think, like, really? Like, that's not realistic. Like, why would they allow this guy who like literally tortured her, assaulted her? Why would he have her book in his cell? But in fact, you can get pretty much all the books are available in prison libraries, it turns out. So I had a lot of fans who were in prison who would write me. Many of them were very polite and just enjoyed the work and wanted to reach out. And some of them were definitely creepier. And then a couple, these guys weren't even from the prison system. And I will say, I started getting calls from prisons.
Oh, wow.
They always call collect. So, I would just say, no, I don't want to, accept this call.
No,
Thank you.
you.
But, all of our information is out there.
Yeah.
We're not hard to find as humans right now.
Not at all.
But I did get one very disturbing, of all of them, the most disturbing letter. It was a guy like really wanting to share his fantasies of kidnapping and raping a child.
Yeah.
And that was the only time where I was like, I need to let some people know about this, which is also tricky because it's like the guy, to my knowledge, has not done anything. He's just talking about stuff in his head, but also it's really dangerous stuff. And he's sharing it, which also feels like a cry for help.
Yeah.
So that was the one that I acted on.
Well, I think that she talks about that she is the muse of serial killers. And I think that just if you're able to talk about people and then they think that you understand them, it also opens the door to, they think that you get them. I did social work for a long time. And so that's sort of what would happen with people. When you really talk about something that they identify with, then it immediately, you have this bond. So they feel bonded to you because you wrote about things that they understand.
Well, and I think reading books, much like listening to a podcast, is an intimate experience, right? A podcast, it's a voice whispering in your ear. And reading, it's your own voice, you the reader, or saying the words out loud. Right. That's what reading is, which is also a really kind of intimate, private communication that, can feel perhaps more profound than it was intended.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Next in the film, Holly and Dolmet visit Sigourney, who has a panic attack, so they just leave some police evidence. I think you alluded to this earlier.
They're like, here's
okay, a couple things. One, Sigourney Weaver's apartment.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. It's like, if I had that apartment, I would not leave the house for 13 and a half months as well. Why would you? It's so fantastic.
Cool. It's so beautiful.
It's so cool.
I love it.
So great. And I love her Chekhov's curtains.
Yes.
And in terms of evidence, my favorite of the mishandling of evidence is when Holly Hunter and Dermot Mulroney are up on the hill and they found a body.
Yeah.
And this is later. And there aren't any little evidence tents, crime scene unit hasn't come and collected anything clearly. And Holly Hunter literally takes a hair.
Yeah.
A hair from Dolores' blazer and is flicks it on the ground, right next to the dead girl.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I thought that would come back later.
No,
it doesn't.
It's really incredible. When Sigourney Weaver comes to, we get a little glimpse into her relationship with Andy.
They gone?
All gone.
Oh, God. I must have looked like such an asshole.
No. I think you look rather good with a bag on your head.
Oh, God. I'm gonna die.
I wouldn't. He'll be back.
Who'll be back?
Don't be coy. You thought he was cute, too.
Oh, I
didn't you?
I did not.
I know you like those cute, brutal types with the eyebrows and the handcuffs. Yeah, admit it.
Oh, God.
What? What did I say?
Nothing. I miss men.
Yeah? And what am I, chopped liver?
You know what I mean. I miss sex. He was pretty cute, wasn't he?
Yes, he was very cute. Okay, no young cops for you. Come on, up you go. Now, why don't you just sit down over here, look at these pictures.
What are these doing here?
I'll get you some coffee.
Andy. I can't.
I love Andy. I think Andy's so sweet, and the friendship between the two of them is... And again, this is 95. I don't know. It just seems really fantastic. Sigourney feels ready to dig into the evidence in the case, and we get cross-cutting between Holly and Sigourney looking at all these murdered women. It's really poignant. I think it's very powerful the way that they edited this together. And Chelsea, I know once you have a successful series like Heartsick and 5 sequels, am I correct?
Yeah, there were 6 books total.
6 books. I call them sequels because I watch
You're
movies.
a movie guy.
I'm such an idiot.
That's cute.
And I saw on your website there might be a 7th. Is this true?
Mhm. That's true.
Do we
Mhm.
know anything more about this? Because the last thing I saw online was 2001.
No, I have not turned it in yet.
Okay.
They're waiting on me.
Oh,
It's
that's
all on me.
Very exciting.
The pandemic. And then I changed it during the pandemic. And then I was like, oh, what I've done is I've written a pandemic book
Yeah, right.
where it's kind of similar. Where it's like people trapped in spaces being anxious.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I get
And then
it.
I was like, maybe make it a tiny bit less about that. And
That's so
more about
exciting
everything.
because you started in, was it 2006, 7, somewhere in there?
I don't know, something like that.
So, and Sarah, that's when she told me your name. She said she was reading this book. We were both
You
social
told you my
workers.
name.
Yep, I know. I couldn't believe it either. But it's been a while that you've been on this journey and doing so many other things. So 7th book. There you go, Sarah.
I'm excited. I didn't know that. I'm excited to read it and for whenever you finish it for it to come out because I was wondering how you were going to describe. I don't know if it's going to be based in Portland, but I'm guessing. But I was really hoping that we would get a feeling of what it's like to be in Portland now because I think that you do so good when you're describing the history of the city. And I actually use you for an example quite often because the only people that I have ever heard talk about the Vanport flood is you. And so I say Chelsea Cain
Yep.
and Dirk's grandma.
Yeah.
Only people
Ah!
ever
She
that
was
I
here-
have
she was at
heard
it. She saw it.
describe it in a terrifying way
Yeah.
of what it would feel like to be in that situation. You are the only 2 people that I have ever heard in my entire life. So
That is so great. Well,
Yeah.
hook me up with your grandma, Dirk.
Sadly, she's passed away, but
Ugh.
she lived a very long life. And I grew up in Oregon too. I love Portland, and to have her have been at something so awful. I mean, I always tell people that she was very full of life, but when she would talk about it, she would look off in the distance, and it was like you were watching someone relive a traumatic experience because she would go right back to it all those years back and reflecting on the horrific situation. So it's
That's incredible. Like I really wanted to write about that, and so I wrote about it in the night season. I was compelled to do it because I did not grow up in Portland, but most of my growing up in Bellingham, and we had family here, and we'd come here for holidays. And
Yeah.
then my mom moved here when I was like 19, so I would come here for college break, and then lived here ever since. I did not learn about the Vanport floods until
no one talks about it.
until I was like 30,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
I was just gobsmacked by the fact that I did not know
Yeah.
this huge event that really shaped our city. People just were not talking about. I think people do more now just because there've been a couple anniversaries, but mostly no.
Yeah.
If you were to like poll elementary school kids in Portland about Vanport, they wouldn't know. So I really started with that. What is a way to tell this story? And I had not until then tried to work a cold case into one of
Yes.
my books because they're harder. Cold cases and
Yeah.
books, not a lot of tension because it's like, so 50 years ago, right?
Right.
Something happened and
Yeah, that always
the
gets me.
stakes are much lighter.
Yeah, that always gets me in films when they start off with the end and then they're like 10
Uh-huh.
years and you're like, "Wait, I already saw the end. What are you doing? There's no tension."
don't take me back.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of tension, Sigourney's about to take a shower.
Nice segue.
Thank you. Thank you. And when she gets out, the dress she was wearing when she was assaulted in the beginning of the film is laying on the bed. She's very unnerved by it.
This is really important. Let's talk about evidence. That
Yes.
dress would be in an envelope, in a box,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? In a city evidence room. She was assaulted. She witnessed a murder.
yeah.
And then they're like, here's your dress.
Well, she keeps it 4 dresses in her closet. It's like so
Well,
accessible too.
And that's the thing. Let's say it was in evidence, and then for some reason they returned it, which they wouldn't do.
Yeah.
They would.
They
keep
wouldn't
it.
do.
They
Yeah.
would
They
keep
would
it.
not do.
But if they did return it, why would you keep it?
And
get
so
rid of
accessible.
In a dry
that
clean,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. It's so weird. Later on,
So
she walks
weird.
by the closet and it's just right in the front. I'm like, that's where you put the stuff you're going to currently
And
wear.
yeah, she has all the money.
Yeah.
Even if it was her best outfit,
You wouldn't keep it.
you
there.
wouldn't keep it.
No. That's so true.
And I want people, like listeners, we're kind of making fun of these
Oh, it's a minute moment.
missteps, but it is a metaphor,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's an emotional metaphor about how she
Absolutely.
can't let that thing go
Yep.
and how it's still literally in her closet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no mistakes in this movie. They knew why they were putting
Yeah.
it there for sure. But it also, we have to acknowledge that it's kind
Right,
of
it's a little silly.
It's
In
a
real
silly.
life, if it was my closet, I would get rid of it.
Yeah.
I would burn that thing.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Next, Holly gets hit on, and her "I don't think so" has lived in my brain since I saw this on the promo tape. It's her whisper of "I don't think so" telling this man off.
I don't think so.
It's so good. I
Holly
absolutely
Hunter,
love it.
man.
Yeah,
Like
seriously.
both the female leads are so good.
So good. I just got goosebumps thinking about it. They're just like two incredible actors, and they're in this movie. And I mean, Sigourney, when she's doing the panic attack stuff and everything, I mean, it's awesome. It's fantastic.
They're both so good.
So good.
I love the way that the characters are written. So I'm not sure if this was this a book before it was a movie, or was it just written as a screenplay? Do you know?
It was written as a screenplay
Yeah.
by a male-female duo.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I think that the way that they write the women characters are really great, and I know Dirk wanted us to talk about that, so maybe this is a good time.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime.
Yeah, I think sometimes when there's women who are strong characters, and there's these two women especially are kind of giving themselves to this dark subject matter, whether it's serial killers in general or just solving these crimes, they aren't tied to other people that are in the here and now, really.
Mhm.
Because they have sacrificed that emotional connection to these people that they don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's what I felt.
I think I want to recognize how incredibly unusual it is to have two female leads in a thriller, whatever kind of like medium, like you're looking at, and having them be three-dimensional characters who don't exist to further male characters' narratives.
Yep.
And who don't exist to be ogled.
Yep. Neither get naked.
I was interested. I did go back and just kind of Google reviews of the time of this movie.
Mm.
And there were so many reviews, all by men,
Yes.
who really criticized it as somehow as a gore fest. They were very unsettled by the fact that we see female victims in their underwear, and they found that really unsettling. And I would like to make a couple arguments about that. One, no shit.
It should
Yeah,
be.
it should be unsettling. And if you're not unsettled,
Then there's
when you
something
watch that
wrong
stuff,
with you.
look at that. Maybe
Yeah.
criticize those movies, because
Mhm.
those are the ones exploiting it. We do not, 3B, we do not. We don't see a woman murdered in this movie.
Right.
We see a couple of men murdered. We do not see a woman murdered, right? We see a woman menaced,
Yep.
in a scary way, and she ends up dead. But otherwise, all of the women, we see their bodies.
Yeah.
Right? This is where this leads. And they're all based on actual crime scene photos, murders committed by actual serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
To put that together, where we have this film that is these two strong, smart, three-dimensional female protagonists, investigating this crime that is exploring not fictional murders,
Mm-hmm.
but real murders, and not showing them to us, but showing us representations of them, usually like literally photographs that are being shown in a room in the movie.
Yeah.
Those pictures, even though they are graphic, they're not intended to titillate the male audience. And I think that there was a segment of male audience that really wasn't comfortable with that, like did not know what to do with that.
Yeah.
This is a lady in her underwear posed, and I should feel something and I don't.
Yeah.
So like this is exploitive. I was kind of shocked reading some of those reviews.
No, I'm not surprised in the 90s, but I do totally agree with these two leads because they're not naked in the film. Even when Sigourney takes a shower, it's not like she's going to wash her breasts for 8 minutes like we see in horror movies.
Yeah, like they're not for you.
Right.
They're not to titillate the male viewer.
They're not. And even the relationship between Holly and Dermot Mulroney, he goes and gets their lunch. He gets her a burger that she asked for. She's not the person that's doing something for him in this film at all. And I think that those power plays and those decisions that are made are so smart for these
Mhm.
characters, and they're
Mhm.
not undercutting in any way. Sigourney even has sexuality. They don't completely remove a woman's sexuality. She is attracted to Dermot Mulroney. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not in the movie so that people are like, well, they gotta have sex at some point.
Mhm.
But the fact that she even has the conversation with Andy or whoever she has a conversation with, she's a three-dimensional person. It's like when you see someone who's gay or lesbian or now non-binary reflected in cinema, and it's not a plot point. That's just who they
Right.
It's just
are.
life.
Yeah, it's just life, and it's refreshing to see, sadly, even now.
Mhm.
But the next scene, Sigourney breaks it all down for them. And speaking of breaks, we'll be right back after this. Feeding. Everyone's got to do it, even vampires. But if you aren't a vampire, or a baby vampire, then sometimes eating can become so repetitive and boring. Which is where Marshall's Hot Sauce comes in. Liven up any meal with those small batch sauces made from only the freshest ingredients. From the sweet, mild heat of smoked habanero barbecue to the addictive serrano ginger lemongrass, or even my two personal favorites, habanero carrot curry and bird's eye basil. In fact, Marshall's Hot Sauce even has a new line of seasonings, including an incredible barbecue rub, a chicken marinade, and even a volcano sparkle that a vampire could eat. The best part is that you can enter VHS Podcast at checkout for 20% off. That's right, liven up those meals and wake up those undead taste buds at marshallshotsauce.com. That's Marshall's, Haute sauce.com. And enter VHS Podcast for 20% off. And now, back to the show. And we're back, and we're seeing Sigourney play Chess Demon, which is an amazing website. She gets an email, and it's a weird video of a lady in a bathtub, and then it mutates, and it gets a skull. It gets super weird.
Which is also very high tech for the time.
so
I feel
high
like.
tech.
Seriously.
I didn't know anybody that could do that in the 90s.
No.
Yeah. Can I say they should have been looking for somebody who's really good at editing,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? And also, there's the whole thing where they find the body and it's got two kinds of sperm in it,
Yep.
right? And they're like, what? Like, and then they kind of are like, no, like it's because it's meant to look like this other crime.
Yeah.
And then it turns out our killer actually works at a sperm bank.
Yes.
I feel like that's a question I would have if I were Holly Hunter. Like, how did he get two kinds of sperm?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't come up until later, which is interesting. We next see the killer meet his wife and dog, which is weird.
Peter! I've been calling and calling. Didn't you hear me? You completely forgot about him, didn't you? Very thirsty bird, you made it a sweetie. Come on. Are you teasing me? Nutty little boy. What are you doing? Want to watch Letterman with me?
Well, I could, darling, but
You know I don't watch talk shows on my own.
I know. It's just, I'm right in, I've got
Go
this.
on. Go back to your silly little computers.
Thanks.
You buy a bottle of soy sauce.
Haven't you forgotten something?
And we also buy a bottle of liquid smoke. Listen to this. I didn't like adding some preservatives in my food. You mix them together. You soak that thin sliced raw meat for just about 5 or 6 minutes.
That's it?
Put the meat on the tray, plug it in.
I love you.
Smells
Yeah,
wonderful.
me too.
A day and a half later, you have beef jerky for just around $3.
That leads us into his den where a woman is trapped. It's intense, and he's going to inject her with Windex, which is horrific.
Did he wait? Hold on. Did you think that was his wife?
I did. Was that not his wife?
I think it was
was
his
his mother.
mom.
Oh, really? I've seen this movie so many times, and I thought he was married to his mom. Okay, well, that's something I learned about myself.
I think,
watching this.
it's his mom.
It's his mom. Wow.
I'm almost, yeah.
They should have made her older, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, they don't really say, but I do think,
Is that it?
yeah, that it's.
Well, we know he's a college kid.
Yeah.
Right.
We're led to believe he is, 22 or whatever.
I also honestly forget he's even in the movie. I think of the three leads, and then anytime I start this film, I'm like, oh, that's right, it's mostly this guy.
Right. And he's disappointing. And
It
can
is.
we say Harry Connick Jr. is terrible?
Oh, yeah.
I really feel passionately about
It's
that.
the hair color choice for me.
The hair
If-
color
I
choice
think
is
so.
not addressed at all. It's, I guess, is supposed to be natural. And his accent, the guy grew up in New Orleans.
Yeah, yeah.
He knows how, yeah, but the whole thing is played as this kind of weird hillbilly thing. And
Yeah.
I did not like it. And I like the guy.
Yeah.
Like I do. I like the guy.
I think he's charming.
No,
Yeah.
not in this though. He's not charming in this.
No.
If you were going to cast that character yourself, who would you cast, Chelsea?
I think a better actor.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I would do that as well with the Peter character. I would cast a better actor there because I think that's the problem, is that he's going up against Sigourney Weaver and Holly Hunter, who are bona fide actors. They're really good. And it felt like he was just kind of playing like a young juvenile. Like was playing it like really much like he's just kind of like saying the words in the script.
It feels like they couldn't get Carrie Elwes, the lead from Princess Bride. That feels like what they were going for, but they're like,
that would have been good.
We already got Sigourney and Holly, so we just don't have the budget for it, is what it felt like. Well, Peter's through playing games, and speaking of games, it's time to play one.
Ooh.
Chelsea, are you ready to play?
I was not told there'd be games.
Killer or Killer Tunes? And I'll remind you, you've already won, so there's no pressure. It's the 2 options. You'll have 10 questions, and you just choose Killer or Killer Tunes. So we'll just start with number 1. Mr. Brightside, is that a killer-related thing or a killer tune?
Killer tune?
That's right. It's a song by The Killers from 2004. Now we're getting the vibe of how this works. Number 2, Giggling Granny. Is that a serial killer or a killer tune?
Oh, that's got to be a killer.
Yes, you're correct. That's Nanny Doss. She poisoned 11 people, unfortunately.
And she was a granny, or
we're not endorsing.
No,
not at all. Not at all. Never. And we don't know who those 11 people were. They maybe were telling her what she could or couldn't do with her body.
They probably deserved it. They had it coming.
Yeah. Number 3, Ted Just Admit It. Is that a serial killer or a killer tune?
Well, that's kind of a trick question, isn't it? But I'm going to go with serial killer tune.
Yeah, you're so good. It's Jane's Addiction off their debut album. They were talking to Ted Bundy in that one. Number 4, Night Shift. Killer tune or serial killer? It's a tricky one.
Tune.
You're right. Night Shift is by Susie and the Banshees. It's a song about the serial killer Peter Sutcliffe.
It's funny, I go right to the movie.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I'm
not trying to trick anyone with these. Number 5, Witch of Correggio. Serial killer or killer tune?
Serial killer.
Okay, Chelsea said serial killer, and she's correct. It's Leonardo Cianculli. She murdered 3 women and turned their bodies into soap and tea cakes.
Whoa, that's intense.
Yeah, I like the tea cake part. That's why it's in there.
Sarah's like, oh, that has to do with food.
Yeah.
Another fun fact for me for later.
Number 6, George Michael.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah, I could only research so many serial killers, Chelsea. I'm going to be honest. I needed some levity, and I got to George Michael.
Okay. Well, that's confusing because he is a musician, rest in peace, a musician.
Yes.
So, not a tune.
Right, but is he related to serial killing or killer tunes?
Killer tunes.
Correct. He had the song Killer / Papa Was a Rolling Stone, which is awesome. I lost about 15 minutes of my life coming up with this because I watched the video 3 times. Number 7, Jolly Jane.
Jolly Jane?
Yeah, Jolly Jane.
Serial killer.
Correct. She was a happy nurse who was poisoning patients.
That Jane.
Yeah. I like that Giggling Granny and Jolly Jane. They were very kind with these.
That's what happens, though. I feel like when women commit crimes, sometimes they are portrayed in a different way than men. They become either like that, where it's like there's something joyful in that. They would never say that if it was like a man doing the same thing. Like if it was a doctor, it would be like devilish doctor or something.
Eviscerating Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beheading Bill. Yeah, it's all like that. Number 8, Psycho Killer.
Oh, that's a tune.
Yeah, it is. That's the old goody buddies talking heads. Number 9, Psychofunkapus. Serial killer tunes.
I'm going to go with tunes.
Oh, correct. It's a funk metal band from the Bay Area in the 90s.
Like a really great serial killer name.
Right? I am Psychofunkapus. I mean, they should just give them stupid names for being morons. Number 10, Killer Funk Disco All-Stars. It's clear I gave up on the game around 6.
Yeah, that's a tune.
Correct. They put out rad disco records.
If you step out tonight, just to check out the night, come on up, join the ride.
I clearly wanted to add more fun as I researched these because researching serial killers is surprisingly a bummer. I also chose only female serial killers because highlighting awful men is nothing we should be doing.
Good job, Dirk.
Thanks. Back in the film, they found the next body, and we see Nico being protective of Holly Hunter to Dolmet, who's not in a relationship with her. And I love these scenes because it's just like she has her own autonomy, and these guys are just fussing about like fools. It's just very, very wonderfully played out.
As is life.
Nico, who is clearly an ex-flame.
Yeah.
We see the top level of their relationship, but it's clear that it's so much deeper. And the more interactions they have, I love that it creates this sense of backstory that we don't know.
Yeah.
Right, that's hinted at, but that is never unpacked. Like a lazier screenplay would have just kind of like laid that out for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. We then see another victim, Sigourney's apartment. We see the car alarm go off and her security person goes out. She's almost victimized, but the person escapes, and Sigourney's upset, but Holly levels with her. And next we listen to the police murder by numbers. The old saying is the devil's in the details. How fun is it for you as an author being so precise and specific with things? Like references, you're doing research on Portland, so you're including these things into stories. It seems like such a fun thing to, like, comedians are best when they're very specific, and I'm wondering if that translates as an author.
Oh, for sure. But I thought listening to that song in the movie is how much did they pay for that, right?
Oh,
because
so much.
They play, no, seriously, enough of the song that they had to pay for it.
Yeah.
All right. The rule in books with songs is that you get 5 lines before you've got to pay for it.
Okay.
And, you often have to pay a lot.
Yeah, royalties.
Right,
yeah.
for anything more than that. And there have been a couple like places in my books where I have wanted a song that I tried to get, and the manager came back and was like, that'll be $100,000. And I was like, all right, I'm going to use a folk song then, like, because if it's like over 80 years old, then you can use it for free. It's circling your question. Yeah, specifics are always better. And I always try to think about what authority do my characters have? What do they know? And this is how point of view can work on the page in a way that it can't, or it works differently in cinema. So if I have a character who happens to know certain facts, who happens to have an interest, that character can be relaying that stuff throughout the narrative when another character wouldn't be. But that's how I slip in specifics.
Yeah, I love that. She next finds a severed thumb or finger in her bed, and so we get Harry Connick Jr.'s back. And in the scene where he refers to underwear as squirrel covers. I mean, I was telling Sarah last night that I read that this came from Harry Connick Jr. The director went to him and was like, come up with a term for women's underwear. And he was like, got it. And then he said in an interview, I just thought of what my brother said when we were kids. And I was like, what's it like to be his brother? That you're forever squirrel cover guy.
So embarrassed.
It's one of the things people remember from this movie is Harry Connick Jr. saying that. And it is very...
And also in like the world's first Zoom call. Can we talk about that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and she has to have this conversation with him, and then like she's so worried, and at first not even going to be on the call, and then she just gets left alone on the call with
she's
him.
like, yeah, no, go ahead, I got it. Just going to sign out here.
Just going to look into his eyes and hear his rambling nonsense.
Yes.
I'll just gossip a little bit here, but Harry Connick Jr.'s dad, do you know this? Harry Connick Sr. was the DA in New Orleans forever. My dad knew him.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, yeah. He was there for a very long time. I think about that as well.
Yeah.
How he felt about it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
His children being the inventor of the term squirrel covers.
Yeah.
Well, because what if it came from him?
Oh,
like,
no.
Because where do kids learn this language?
Oh, my goodness.
From their fathers.
Oh, no.
I paroled a couple of days ago. I figured I'd just send a baggie with him. And Curtin was going to hook up with him.
Do you know when and where?
All depends, Doc.
Depends on what?
You see, it gets awful lonesome in here, Doc. I think about you all the time. A personal token would be nice. Let's see. Something feminine, something lacy, something really, something pretty. I got it. Send me some of your squirrel covers.
I beg your pardon?
I beg your pardon? Your panties. You wear them, don't you? That's what I want.
Oh my gosh. We get more bodies found. We get the idea that he's copying all these different killers. We get a great scene where Sigourney says, "Here, kitty, kitty," which is a callback from Alien.
Here, kitty, 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 kitty.
I love it.
Good.
I love it.
Thank you for putting that in there.
Yeah. Cops investigate the killer's home, which goes up in flames. Holly, at one point, arrives at the crime scene, bumps into a flashlight that rolls through blood, and it's just one of those things in this movie where I was like, fucking love this movie! Not just the narrative choices, but the editing, cinematography, and direction of this thing is way better than it has any right to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. It's way better than it has any right to be. From that very first shot that you mentioned, where it's that overhead shot of the students, you know, on the lawn. It's like right away establishing, like, oh God, like there's actually we're looking at it like through a point of view. Like it was just very cool.
I totally agree. We get the motion detectors. Sigourney's strung up in the bathroom. This is our final scene, which is the beginning of the film. Coming back again, we get all these awesome callbacks, minute details. Peter's quoting Harry Connick Jr. It doesn't seem redundant.
He's quoting the killer, not Harry Connick.
Yeah, sorry. A lot of our listeners don't watch the movies, so oftentimes I'll use the actors' names so that they can stay with the narrative.
I just love the idea of him quoting Harry Connick Jr. from a song.
Yes. Yeah, I did an episode on a movie called Brain Scan, and the actor that was the detective, he played Skeletor in a movie, so I just kept calling him Detective Skeletor, much to the delight of the guests. I know, I'm a questionable narrator, but...
Unreliable. You're an unreliable
That's
narrator.
what it is. Thank you.
I did read the second bathroom, the bookend bathroom scene. It took 8 days to shoot.
Yes.
I love.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine having that thing around your neck for that long. But there's a great thing where he's emasculated and then Holly shoots him, and I love the whole thing. But then we end the credits with Harry Connick Jr.'s face, which is just creepy. It's a creepy way to be like, we killed the killer, and then he's like, but you didn't, because they're everywhere, and he's talking about how like people are
He's
inspired
like, I
by
can get
his
anybody
shit,
to
and
do this again.
It's so awful and true, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Like what I loved about that shot.
Yeah.
They hold on Harry Connick Jr. He's still in prison. He's writing a letter from a fan, which is to say Conrad is the name, but some white boy who wants to kill women.
Yep.
And they hold on Harry Connick Jr.'s face for like an uncomfortable amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like 5 minutes and he doesn't move much, but then he'll blink. You know, like you're seeing him. It's a very brave, weird choice. And it both reinforces the threat, the ongoing threat, you know, that our characters and also perhaps culturally we need to fucking deal with.
Yep.
And yet it also kind of undermines this great female accomplishment. Just thinking about as a woman watching this movie, I want so badly for them to win at the end. And that certainly subverts it. It pulls the rug out, which, you know, again, is a choice like that was absolutely like made.
I always wonder though with stuff like this, if it was made just because maybe they were going to do a sequel. A lot of movies will set it up like that so that, okay, well now we're going to make a second one.
Right. They could hire any subpar actor to be Harry Connick Jr.'s.
Yeah, but it does totally takes away from the fact that Holly Hunter made a choice. She shot him in the arm. She could have left it at that. He could have been in jail, but she keeps going.
Yeah.
She shoots him to kill. We know she knows how to do that, and she does. And I think that she made a choice because she wanted to save this other woman, and she does it. That might not have happened if she just shot him in the arm, like where the other guy killed her partner. So
well, and Sigourney also takes her foot off the toilet. She's not going to die on his terms, and that's what really like messes with him. Is he takes all of his control. She's just like, no, like this is my life to live or die, and I'm not. It's not up to you. And
I love that moment when she takes her foot off the toilet.
Yeah.
And even before that, where she just starts like frankly talking to him like his mother.
Oh, I love it so much.
And yeah, it puts him on his back heel.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Because she understands him more than he understands himself.
Yeah, it's really good. But that brings us to the end. So final thoughts, anything you'd like to say before we conclude on Copycat and move into final questions?
Well, two things that I wanted to bring up that didn't come up in our conversation that
please.
involved Chelsea. So one is just that I know that you married a video store clerk.
I married my video store clerk.
And, you know, Dirk has this podcast because he grew up in a video store. And so I just wanted to see if your experience is the same thing as mine.
Probably. Tell me, what is it, girlfriend?
Well, just that. Is your husband always watching different movies and knows
Yes.
random facts about all the movies, and he can tell you where they're made and who made them?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
There's someone else
Yes.
living a similar experience to mine, and that feels really nice.
Yeah, no, like, and maybe we could start a different kind of Zoom call where it's just us as a support group. There's probably hundreds of us. And I will say, Mark, I think also has this, probably like Dirk, this, Mark wants to watch all the movies, all of the movies.
Can I hang out with Mark? I would like to talk to Mark.
It's just like, because then he can at least cross them off in his head, you know, like it's like he watches mostly really great movies.
Oh, okay, we're different.
Right? No, but he also is just like any movie. He's just like, I need to watch it and check it off.
Yeah.
Dirk is that way too.
And we have the same. I'm seeing you, Dirk, right now. I don't know if you know that I can see you.
Yeah, thank you. I feel seen in this conversation right now.
And yeah, you got a lot of DVDs back there. And we have a similar home full of DVDs like that.
Yeah.
And weirdly, not Copycat. That was not one that Mark held on to.
Are there ever things that Mark will watch and he will just be like, I'm going to watch this and you're not going to want to watch this? Because that happens with Dirk a lot.
Yeah. I won't put it on for you, though.
No, you just say either.
Yeah,
are you going
to
be doing something else?
Shark movies. Yeah. I'll watch those privately.
Oh, for Mark, it's more like, so, honey, I'm going to watch this, Iranian movie from the 60s about a kite. You want to come? And I'm like,
I think I own that.
Not always do I want to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So we're done with Copycat then, or did you have something else?
I have a few things about Copycat.
Okay, great. Please.
No, this is one. I think this is really important, you guys.
Yeah.
I think the main message of this movie is that bathrooms are terrifying.
Public ones especially.
Yeah, but even her own bathroom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bathroom terror going on.
A better title.
Think people are vulnerable in the bathroom.
Within my notes, I have written very large, bathroom ambush, never cool.
Yeah. Not cool. Question mark, exclamation point.
That's true. I encountered a spider in the shower one time when I was the most vulnerable. I've never not checked the bathroom since. I start up the shower and I'm like, where's that fucking spider?
Yeah, you just sponge bath, sweetie. You sponge bath at the sink.
Yep. I feel so seen again.
Also, a quote that I wrote down that I really, really loved was, I think this is Andy talking to Sigourney Weaver, but like living on cat food and camembert. I was
yeah.
That is...
It's beautiful.
Very good writing.
Nice alliteration. So we're ready for final questions?
Ready.
Okay, here we go. It's just a couple, but I like to start off with, what's a good day for you as an author?
A good day for me as an author,
as
opposed to just like a good day as a person.
Yep. Just this is more specific to your profession.
That's an interesting kind of dichotomy you've just created in terms of silos. All right. Well, actually creating work.
Yeah. So you're at work, so it's an easier question for if I'm talking to an optometrist. They're like, obviously a good day for me is eyes, I guess. I don't know. I haven't talked to one. But so
that's eyes also are a good day for me.
Great.
If I do surgery on eyes and the person lives, it's that's a good day. And then if I can get a couple chapters written, it's a perfect day.
Cool. Yeah. Then what's a bad day like?
Well, as an author, a bad day as an author.
Yeah.
So there's two bad days.
Mm-hmm.
One is the writing all day and then realizing that it's not usable. It's not going to work, right? It doesn't serve the story. So now I have spent the day, and it's not like painting a fence where it's like spend 8 hours painting a fence and look back and be like, look at all the fence I painted, right? That feels good. Yeah. I did that thing. Like this is just like typing into the void. And then at the end, it's like, I guess I could print it out and then have a thing, but like mostly it's this abstract notion that doesn't live in the world. It can feel very wasted. And then the even worst version of that is not writing during that day, right? It's like, oh, the Daily Mail, like what? What's going on at Marvel? Like what? Like, it's like, and then suddenly, it's the end of the day and I have like researched, a whole lot of gossip on the internet and haven't even written the pages that I might not need to use.
Yeah.
But a good day is obviously the opposite. It's having that story crystallize. But the best day is writing and finding a way to solve a problem in the work. That's the best feeling. And I love putting characters in jeopardy and kind of challenging them to find their way out. And so being able to find those escape hatches narratively
Oh, yeah.
is the best feeling in the world.
That's beautiful. Sarah, I think you're similar in work in that way, where you come up with a problem and then finding the solution through recipe development or whatever. Does that sound similar?
Well, no, because the kind of writing that I do is like technical writing. It is like problem solving. You are doing that. So of course, because Chelsea is better with words than I am, she described the process, but it is what you're doing when you're a recipe writer too. But it's a lot different because there's not so much that can get in the way of it. It's just like describing things well enough for a person to look at it and be able to do the exact same thing. So it's a little different.
You're probably closer than you think.
Yeah.
I love puzzles.
Me too.
Gosh, you do.
Yeah. And I love games. And I think, like writing and recipes, both kind of rely heavily on that. And I think anytime we crack a story, and I think recipes are stories, I have no idea if they are, but I'm going to say that because I use words. I think that recipes are stories. When we crack a story, it kind of tickles maybe an itch, like a lizard brain itch, just a human. Oh, poison ivy. What if I put it against my hand? Does that hurt? I'm going to do it again. Does that hurt? I'm going to do it again. Does that hurt? I think I'm not going to do that anymore. My hand feels better. Like there's something about cracking a problem that is really universal and feels really good when you get there. Even if you've touched the poison ivy 35 times at that point. Finally, you're like, oh, that's why my hand hurts.
I love that. So you two can do a puzzle and Mark and I can watch a movie. This is turning out to be a great weekend. Chelsea, do you have any advice for someone who's interested in writing?
Who's interested in writing? No.
Okay, great.
If you're writing, I have advice for you.
Okay.
If you're interested in it, don't do it.
Right. Well, because you've written in so many different formats, I was just curious.
No, I think that people who are writers write.
Okay. That's fair.
That's what I mean. So like somebody who is like, oh, I think I might have a book in me. Like I would get a job if I read.
Right.
But if you're somebody, and you know who you are, if you're listening to this, if you're a writer, if you're somebody who writes, who enjoys that process, who writes because you enjoy the process of writing, you're not doing it for some sort of back end event, then I think learn to write when you don't want to. Study, like share your work. And, send it out. When you're rejected, send it out again. And when you're rejected, send it out again. The thing about writing a book is that a lot of people think they can do it because we've all written emails. We all text, right? We're all writers.
Okay.
Everybody has an idea for like a story. Mm-hmm. And people think like, well, if I just had time, what is a book if just not 10,000 texts?
Right. Okay.
Of all of the people who want to write a book, who think about writing a book, who tell themselves that they can write a book, 95% of them, 99% of them don't finish the book.
Yeah.
So if you can be the person who finishes the book, you're ahead of 99% of your competitors right there, which is incredible, right? Right at that point, like all you have to do is finish the book. And that is something that you can control. Unlike a lot of other things in life, you can do that. You can finish the book and be ahead of everybody. And then you got to get an agent, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to get an agent. A lot of people of that, like few percent of people who finish the book, those people, they're going to send in a sample to an agent. And the first rejection that they get, they're going to be like, oh, well, and that eliminates, right? Mm-hmm. 30% of your competition. So you send it out again. And the people who send it out twice, that's going to peel off another 20%. So you send it out a third time. Like that's how you get a book published. Mm-hmm. And, every single time you're rejected, know that you are winning. You are that much closer.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Does that hit you pretty hard, Sarah?
Well, I was just thinking about, in my circumstance, I started writing things out because I didn't really think of myself as a writer, even as a recipe writer, because I just had all these things and I would cook them and I would write them down and they were on scraps of paper. But really for me, when I was pregnant and nursing, I needed something to do because I wasn't used to sitting. I didn't know how to sit and like nurse a baby. So I sat and wrote while I was doing that. And I feel like that sort of, maybe it didn't turn me into a writer because I was already writing, but it made it so that it gave me like, I don't know the right word to say, but it was like an outlet that wasn't there in my life before.
But what took that to where you actively sought out a agent?
Because I had written all this stuff. And I didn't want.
Starting to pile up.
Yeah, I spent all this time doing it, and
Okay.
I was like, well, now I got to do something with this because I don't just want it to stay here.
Because I think, like Chelsea said, a lot of people just wouldn't do that. They
Yeah.
just put it in a drawer or be like, I'll get to that later. But I think for both of you, I mean, I don't know if Chelsea, if you were sought out by an agent or if you looked for an agent, but I watched Sarah go through the process of searching for one. And even that, I was like, all right, I just put stuff in a drawer. I wasn't even writing something and I just put it away. But like, it's impressive. I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Chelsea. So it's the final question, and it's my favorite question. Chelsea, what are your dreams like?
My dreams, like, so I have a lot of nesting dreams. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, where I have a dream within a dream within a dream.
Oh, yeah.
And it's often paired with sleep paralysis.
Oh, no.
I will be asleep, I will have a dream, and in the dream, and there's some sort of state, it's a scary dream of some kind, anxiety or, like whatever. There's something, some emotional stakes. And then I will wake up from that dream and find that I'm still in another dream. I'm trapped. So like I think that I'm in reality, that I've woken up, I've gotten up, I've started my day, and then it will become clear to me in the dream that I'm still in a dream. And then I have to try to wake myself up, right? And then I will try to wake myself up, and then I will wake up and be like, fuck, like I'm safe, it's fine. That was just another one of those weird nesting dreams. And I'll start my day, and then I'll realize I'm still in the dream. And that can go on for, 5 or 6 levels. And at some point I will manage to fight through the sleep paralysis, because I have a lot in general. My daughter is a sleepwalker. We've some weird sleep stuff in my family, but I will get to a point where I realize I can't move my body, that I can't get out of the dream, that I'm stuck in the dream. And then I've got to figure out, like, I got to make myself scream.
Whoa.
To wake my husband up, because then he can wake me up,
Yeah.
which saves me from the dream. And as soon as he does, and he talks about this, I will be, generally I will be trying to say something like, help me. So imagine that, right? You're cuddled in bed.
No, we have the same thing.
Yeah.
Really?
I
Yeah.
do that to Dirk. I don't have the dream within a dream. I just have one dream, and something happens, and I try to scream, like, for Dirk to wake me up, but I can't open my mouth because I'm sleeping with my mouth closed, so it just goes like this.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. Like that is sleep paralysis, and it's really weird because it's difficult to even know in my head, like, what have I said? Like, and I'll say to Mark later, like, what did you hear? Because I was saying a specific thing, and sometimes he'll be like, no, you were just kind of like making muffled sounds, and then he'll wake me up, and I will like look terrified, just like as if I had been like menace, like really terrified. And then I'll be asleep 10 seconds later. Same. And then he's up for like 2 hours, just like, staring at the ceiling. And I'm like totally fine because I'm out of the dream and I'm completely out of it. Like totally fine, able to like go back to sleep.
Yeah, Dirk will wake me up because that's my goal. I'm trying to get him to wake me up, because
Right.
I can realize it's a dream because I can't open my mouth. And so then he'll wake me up and I'll just be like, oh, thank you.
And then she goes right back to
Sarah,
sleep.
did you sleepwalk as a kid?
Uh-uh.
Are you sure? Because this was a thing. I didn't think I sleptwalked as a kid. It turns out I just didn't have a lot of parental supervision.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah.
That could be.
My mom worked at night as a night shift nurse, and so I was at, a babysitter's house, which maybe had something to do with it, like with another family.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I sleptwalk at night, maybe.
As a kid, I would often wake up on the floor across the room from my bed, like that kind of thing. And people would be like, oh, you just fell out of bed. And it was only much later I was like, really? Like I fell out of bed and rolled 20 feet. Like
sleep log rolling just around.
Maybe.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Well, Chelsea, you've been so kind and giving with your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, for revisiting Copycat. ChelseaCain.com is the website. Please visit that. Sarah Marshall, thank you as always for being here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. And Chelsea, I'm so excited that you were on the show today. I've always wanted
really
to chat
fun
with
to talk
you.
to you guys.
Really
and
fun.
like, again, surprisingly excellent movie.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
I love it. Thank you. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VH